Today we're going to talk about blocking quilts, and to start with we're going to talk about what you need to do it. I happen to have a huge room. That helps a lot. You can do this on tables if you can get enough tables to support every seam that you're going to need to use in order to get your foam boards big enough. These are 1-inch insulation boards. Mine look pretty beat up. We use them a lot. I don't always use them. I don't only use them for blocking quilts. I use them for design walls when they're not being used. We just prop them up against the wall and pin our quilt blocks to them, and it works really well. So we have 3 big ones, and I have a 4th one that I cut into thirds. They're 22 inches by 48 inches. What this does is when I have a really large quilt, it gives me the opportunity to make it just enough bigger. And because we need some room for our laser light, 1 sheet of 48 by 96 will give you enough room to block a 36 by 82 quilt. 2 sheets will give you enough room to block an 82 by 82 quilt, or anything below that. 3 sheets will give you enough to do 82 wide by 130 long, which is always plenty. I haven't run into anything longer than 130. But if they're 130 long, chances are they're wider than that 82 inches. So those little pieces, that 4th piece of insulation cut into thirds, or 32-inch pieces, will give me enough room to block a quilt that's 124 inches by 130 inches. And I've not yet run into any reason to go buy another piece of foam board. So the other pieces you're going to need to do this are lots of pins, a laser square. This one's from Stanley. I've had this a few years. I'm sure they still have them. Please don't tell my husband I have this. He doesn't even know, and I'm sure he would steal it for out at the farm. The other thing I have, and it's over there in the corner, is an oscillating fan. And I use that to just kind of keep some air moving on the quilt. It gets really humid in this building when I do this. So I try to do this at the end of a day, set the fan, and go home. And that will keep me from having to work in here. It's getting to be a colder time of year. It's probably going to take a couple days for the quilt that I'm going to show you to get dry enough to pull off. So let me go get that quilt, and I'll be back and we'll start blocking this. Okay, let's get started. I have my laser square turned on. It gives me a 90-degree angle for getting my line straight. And I'm going to do 1 side, 2 sides with this setting. So I'm going to stick a pin right here, so if this gets bumped, I can at least get it back to where I need to be. And I point this first corner and throw a pin right where those 2 lines meet. So as I work my way down, and see I bumped it, I put my hand on here, and where I can see that line is meeting with this, I'll throw a pin into the quilt and into the foam board right next to that binding. And I do it about every inch or so. And I'm trying not to stretch this quilt. They're pretty easy to stretch when they're wet. A lot of times if I'm blocking a quilt that doesn't need to be washed, I will block the quilt dry and then take a spray bottle and get it wet. So you've got some options here. Wet quilts tend to stretch pretty easy, so I don't want to do that. If you do that and you start doing the other 2 sides, it gets really hard to get everything to square. So I'm just going to keep doing this all the way to the other end, and then I will do the side that goes to the right. If you look, let me see if I can loosen this. At the far end, I have a piece of paper. I'm not sure if this is going to show on the camera. there's a piece of paper that shows me that vertical line that comes off of my laser square. And it kind of gives me an idea of where I'm heading. So there's two pieces of paper, just kind of folded tent-wise. One points one direction, one's the other. We'll use that when we go back to the other direction. Wow, that straightened up really nice. So that's how we do the first side. For the second side, we'll do the same thing. Go in the other direction. And I'll just follow that until I get to the end. Now, if this happened to be a quilt that was square, I would measure both directions to make sure they were the same size. This isn't a square as in the same sides, all the same size. So I'm not worried about it. I just want them to lay straight. So let me go get this side going. And we'll take a look at how much this one straightens out. So, second edge looks pretty darn good. It's all nice and straight, but look at the wrinkles in this quilt. We're going to have to get those out, and we'll do that in the next step. We're going to grab our laser, and we're going to come around to the opposite corner. And I've already turned this piece of paper so that it faces where my laser level or my laser square now sits. I'm going to turn this one the same way. This just lets me have a chance to see the laser line so I can put this laser in the right spot. So let's see if I can get this thing to, there we go. Okay, I'm going to be adjusting and moving this laser until I can get lines on both corners. So I have to keep pulling it out and twisting it until both corners are lined up, and this is where those papers help. And I'm getting close. Really close. And I think that's going to be where it needs to be. So let me grab some pins and we'll go over what happens next. Okay, I've taken the camera off the tripod so you can see what I'm seeing. Hopefully that laser is there. So it looks like I'm okay this direction, but this quilt's going to have to be moved this way. I also have some excess fabric on that end. I don't know if you can see the bump down there or not. So when I do this, I start where I've already got pins and work toward the laser to get that fabric where I need it. So let me do a little bit of this and we'll see if we can get this straightened out. Okay, I'm at the far end here where I want to start, and I'm working this direction. So I'm going to put my finger down and see where my lines end up so I know where to put these pins. And that laser just kind of shows right where I need to be. And as I work my way down here, I'm finding fluff that I didn't see when I was just pulling at the very end. Now, some of my friends block before they put their bindings on. I put my binding on with the long arm. I guess I could block it with all the extra before I cut it, and then block it, put it back on the machine and do the binding. Most of the time, I just put the binding on and then block later. So I'll keep working down this edge and meet you at the end. Okay, third side is done. It's looking pretty good there. And there's the second side we did, and the first side we did, and here's the last one. And if you look, there is some major fluff down here. And let's see if I can show you where the line is. There's the line. Hey, we're quite a ways away. So I see there's some bumps and lumps. When you're doing this with a normal quilt and you've got lines that you want to line up, kind of smush them around to where they're lined up. This one, nothing lines up. So I'm just going to try and get this edge done and smush the extra that's up there down to here so we can put it where it belongs. Woohoo! This last one worked out just fine. Look how nice and straight that is. So, now, I think I need to clear too that I didn't come up with this method. This was shown by Adam Chenevert, and his video is on a private site, so I can't share his video, or I would have. So I've done this so that you can see what we've done. The other thing you should know is I don't get up and get down and get up and get down. I have been for this video, but most of the time I just sit on my tush and kind of walk myself around the quilt. This worked out really well. I'm kind of surprised. Actually, I'm really happy with how this quilt looks now. So that's the reason we block. I will grab another picture from early on so you can compare the two. Happy quilting!